In the year 1960, a group of scientists decided to find out what happens to a human mind that never sees light. To do it, they took newborn animals and covered their eyes completely. No light, no shapes, no movement, no visual world at all. They believed the eyes would still develop. That vision was biological. That it would simply be there, waiting, when the darkness was finally lifted. What they found instead changed everything we thought we knew about the human brain. And then the same thing happened to babies. Not in a lab, not on purpose, in hospitals, in homes. In the ordinary darkness of a world that did not know what it was doing. The scientist was a Canadian neuropsychologist named Donald Hebb. He had spent his career trying to understand how experience shapes the brain. In the 1940s and 50s, the assumption was simple. The brain is hardware, experience is software. You load the software after the hardware is built. The machine works either way. Hebb did not believe this. He believed the hardware itself was being built by experience. That the brain was not waiting for the world. It was being constructed by it. The only way to prove it was to take the world away. His colleagues raised animals in complete darkness from birth. When the darkness was lifted, the animals could not see. Not because their eyes had failed. The eyes were perfect. Every part of the visual system was intact, but the brain had never received a signal. And so it had never built the pathways to process one. The eyes were open, but there was no one home to look through them. For centuries, doctors had assumed the same could not happen to humans. Babies born with cataracts were told to wait. The surgery is risky. The eye will be fine. We will operate when the child is older. They were wrong. When the cataracts were finally removed, years later, those children could not see properly. Not because the surgery failed, but because the window had closed. Somewhere between birth and the first few years of life, the brain is wired to receive visual information with almost no effort. It is hungry for it. It pulls in everything: depth, color, movement, faces. Building pathways faster than at any other point in a human life. The neural circuitry is open, almost begging for input. And then it closes. After that window, vision is something the brain can still refine. But the deep architecture, the ability to process the world the way a sighted person does from birth, becomes nearly impossible to install. The babies who waited too long for their cataract surgery passed that window in the dark. And here is where the story gets stranger. Because this was not just about eyes. In the 1960s, researchers began studying children who had been raised in environments of severe deprivation. Not darkness of light, but darkness of everything. No stimulation, no interaction, no faces, no voices, no world. They found the same pattern. A child named Isabel was discovered in 1938, locked in a dark room with her deaf-mute mother. She was 6 years old. She could not speak. She could not interact normally. She communicated only with gestures. When she was found, specialists assumed she could never be taught. They were wrong about that too. Unlike Jeannie, who was found at 13 and had missed the window entirely, Isabel was found at 6, still inside it, just barely. Within 2 years, she had learned to speak normally. She went to school. She caught up. The window had not yet closed. The researchers studying these children began to understand something that changed how we think about the human brain entirely. The brain is not born finished. It is born open. Every sense, every skill, every way of understanding the world has a window. A period where the brain is designed to receive that specific kind of input. Where the circuitry is being built in real time by whatever the child experiences. Light builds vision. Touch builds the ability to feel connected to other humans. Sound builds language. Movement builds spatial understanding. And darkness, in any form, does not leave the brain untouched. It leaves it unbuilt. In the 1990s, Romanian orphanages were opened to the world after the fall of communism. What researchers found inside was a generation of children who had been fed, clothed, and kept alive in near total sensory darkness. No toys, no play, rows of cribs in silent rooms. Caregivers who were too overwhelmed to hold, speak to, or stimulate the children in their care. The children rocked back and forth endlessly. They stared at nothing. Many could not form attachments. Many showed brain scans that looked dramatically different from children who had been raised with normal stimulation. They had been kept alive, but they had not been given a world to build a brain with. One researcher stood in a room full of babies who did not cry. Not because they were content, because they had learned that crying brought nothing. They had gone silent. The most disturbing part of what the darkness experiments revealed is not what happens to the brain that is deprived. It is how permanent it can be. Hebb's animals, raised in darkness, could gain some function when given light. But they never fully recovered the visual processing of animals raised normally. The window had closed, the circuitry had not been built, and no amount of light after the fact could rebuild it completely. The babies with cataracts, operated on too late, learned to navigate the world. But their visual processing was never quite normal. They struggled with faces, with depth, with the automatic reading of the visual world that sighted people do without thinking. They could see, but they could not see the way someone sees who was never in the dark. Donald Hebb wanted to understand how experience shapes the brain. What he discovered instead was that experience does not just shape the brain. For a window of time, at the very beginning of a human life, experience is the brain. The darkness is not the absence of input. The darkness is the absence of the mind that input was supposed to build. A baby raised in darkness does not simply miss seeing the world. It misses becoming the person who could have seen it.